From Homedale to Salmon River, District 3 has several teams that don't always get their due. Stepping outside the shadows of the SIC, this is the Treasure Valley Prepcast with Logan Green.
That's right. It's another edition of the Treasure Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, breaking down all that District 3 action you need to know for the 3A, 2A, 1A ranks. Brandon Bainey with Logan Green, and tonight's Prepcast is presented by D.L. Evans Bank. It's really nice to have them on board, making this Prepcast possible, Logan.
Yeah, just saying, them and as long as all of our sponsors, right, that help us be able to bring all this content and cover every nook and cranny of the state. And we can't do it without them. So much thanks to D.L. Evans Banks for being here with us tonight.
Yeah, Logan, as critically acclaimed broadcasters, we carry hefty salaries, don't we? Somebody's got to pay for that.
Yeah, that's right. That 50 cents an hour, somebody's got to pick that up.
Yeah. Seriously though, thanks to DL Evans Bank for making this possible. And of course, all of our sponsors that support so many of the things that we do, because that's really what we're all about, is trying to shine the spotlight on the high school athletes across the state of Idaho. And we couldn't do it without that support. So let's start tonight's Prepcast with some volleyball action. There's a lot of good teams in the Treasure Valley, Logan. That, no surprise, there always is, but there's some really strong teams.
Yeah, and we hit on this last week with how many are in the top 5 at the 1A D2 level. You've got Council at number 5, Tri-Valley is number 3, the defending state champions, and then Horseshoe Bend is number 1. Of course, Horseshoe Bend 3rd place last year. So really just right there, just bang, bang, bang. And this is, of course, last week's rankings. The new coaches poll will come out, I believe, tomorrow, right?
Yeah,
on
tomorrow
Wednesday.
Morning.
It's Tuesday night, so maybe we're a little bit ahead of the game here with it, but. You look at on the other side as well at in 2A, Melba is ranked 2nd, and then in 3A as well. Nampa Christian's also ranked 5th, and then Fruitland's ranked 3rd. And Fruitland right now is 13-3, and the next team in their conference, I believe, is McCall at 10-6. Like the separation there, it's a big gap for Fruitland right now, and Fruitland, I mean. The girls' athletics at Fruitland right now are on a tear. The girls' soccer team is just rolling through everybody, and the volleyball team's 13-3. It's just really tough to top them right now in those two sports. Fruitland looking to run away with those two sports, and then you look at Melba is 7-2 last. It's a good record, and they've also knocked off 2 conference opponents this week in Nampa Christian, and they beat them 3-1. We just mentioned Nampa Christian was 5th. And Melba had no problem with them. So Melba's sitting pretty there at that 2nd seed or 2nd spot in the coaches poll. And then they beat New Plymouth 3-0 as well. So Melba looking really good. And then if we look right on the outside, right, so the outside looking in, who maybe could make that next step, there's a couple of teams at the 1A D1 level that have been looking really good over the last couple of weeks. We mentioned Greenleaf last week. With their star player, fantastic week. But Greenleaf is one of those teams right now. They're sitting at 6-2. They're looking good as well. The Grizzlies making some noise, and I think they have a big game tonight. Actually, they're going to be playing Rimrock, and Rimrock is one that we haven't talked about at all. And they're kind of on a roll right now. They're 5-1, 1-0 in conference right now, and I believe their only loss. Sorry, I just had it right here. Let me see. Who did they lose to? Oh, Hagerman. They lost to Hagerman last week on the road. But outside of that, a clean slate for Rimrock. So we'll see how they do when it comes around to conference play. They'll have to go against Notice as well. Notice is also 3-0 this past week. So Notice looking good. And Rimrock, like I said, is going to be playing Greenleaf tonight. So I'm anxious to see how that one shakes out. Maybe some of those teams are kind of trailing Liberty Charter. Liberty Charter seems to be the class of the conference, at least right now, running away with it. They have a 7-2 record, so everybody's kind of knocking on the door of those two of Liberty Charter. So we'll see who can come out. I really like Notice Rimrock, and Greenleaf. See if any of those 3 teams can make some noise come the rest of the season.
Yeah, there was a lot of volleyball going on last week. Of course, the Idaho Classic, that big tournament that's hosted by Mountain View, that's kind of the smaller schools, those 3A, 2A, 1A schools. Tri-Valley hosted their Titan North-South Challenge. Normally they get like teams from up north, like from District 2, the White Pine League, and they come down and play. Well, because of COVID and stuff like that, it was basically just the South this year. But Tri-Valley won their own tournament, which is always nice. And then a couple of those 3A programs that you mentioned went over to Bonneville High School in Idaho Falls to compete in the Bonneville Classic. Now, that was mostly 5A and 4A teams. There were only 3A teams that were even invited. Defending champ Sugar Salem was one, and then Weiser and Fruitland were the other two. So that's pretty good company. And then there were teams like Rocky Mountain, Skyline, Bonneville, Highland was there. So this was a really good opportunity for both Weiser and Fruitland to kind of see where they stack up against bigger, stronger opponents.
Yeah, and that just shows how impressive they've been so far this season to get an invite to come all the way to Idaho Falls. That's almost 6-hour drive from Weiser, I think, because it's 4.5 from Middleton. So add about an hour and a half, hour or so from Weiser. That's almost 6 hours to play that. And, there's a lot of 3A teams between Idaho Falls and Weiser that they could have picked up, but they wanted them to come over. So impressive for them and Fruitland to get that invite and then to show up well in that tournament.
For sure. So 3A looking strong in volleyball, of course. 3A, the Snake River Valley Conference continues to be amazing in football as well, Logan, as we transition into what happened in football last week. I think probably the biggest head turner was Homedale hosting Sandpoint. That's a 3A hosting a 4A program. And the Trojans not only won, but they won, I think, rather convincingly 38-21 over the Bulldogs.
Yeah, and we mentioned it last week that they kind of been sleeping on Homedale a little bit just because we don't know too much, because they've been playing Oregon teams and they played Caldwell the opening week, and no disrespect to Caldwell, but I don't think anybody adds it to the look what I did, I beat Caldwell. So we just hadn't seen too much of them, and then Sandpoint comes down, a top 5 team, only lost by like 1 or 2 to Coeur d'Alene, and then they just get kind of run out of the building there in Homedale. And I think that made people sit back and say, oh, wait a second. We've been talking about Weiser. We've been talking about Gooding. We've been talking about who pick your poison. And maybe we should have been talking about Homedale this whole time. And I think that one caught a lot of people's attention and definitely caught mine, and saying, maybe this is the year, right? This is the year that, 3 years in a row that they've had it. As long as they play anybody but Sugar Salem, I like their chances. But just incredible that it's been those two teams 3 years in a row, and Sugar not probably not where they have been in the past, and this might be an opportunity for Homedale. And I mean, they're gonna have to deal with Weiser when they come around to it, but beating Sandpoint like they did, you got to feel good about that going into the end of the season.
And this was a Sandpoint defense that came in, averaging, allowing less than 30 points per game. And they gave up 38 to the Trojans. Hayden Kinchelow rushed for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jackson Dines, the quarterback, rushed for 176 yards and 2 touchdowns. They carved up what is generally considered to be a pretty good Sandpoint defense. So I agree. Homedale, I think right now, is far and away the best team in 3A. And until somebody else knocks them off that perch, I'm going to keep voting them number one in the media poll each week. Sugar Salem, if they get back to the championship, a lot of things have to go wrong for a lot of teams. I will say that.
I just think that, and we've said it 100 times, I think that 3A just has so many really good teams. Other levels, I think they have. There's a lot of parity, and that we've seen a lot of people lose that we thought maybe were good. But I think in 3A, it's just a lot of really good teams, and it's going to be a dogfight end of October through the first couple weeks in November. And I'm excited for it. Excited to see Weiser in the playoffs, to see Homedale in the playoffs, to see Fruitland over there too. I think Fruitland's probably going to work their way in. And I think you look at that conference and say the surprise of the week was maybe that McCall-Grangeville game. That McCall only scored 6 points, falls to Grangeville 7-6.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird game. It was a Thursday night in Grangeville. So McCall's got to make the trip up there, which is, it's not like super far, like
No.
McCall to Grangeville isn't too bad, but it's also a 2A program. Grangeville hadn't won a game yet this year. They'd had some problems with keeping their heads cool in some lopsided games. And so for Grangeville to come out and win 7-6, I think McCall's okay. A loss to a 2A team is never a good look for a 3A school, but Grangeville's a good team. And despite their 1-3 overall record, they played a really tough schedule. And I think they're going to be a team that will qualify for the 2A playoffs pretty easily. So,
Right.
Not too bad of a loss for McCall there, 7-6, and their first setback of the year. They're now 2-1. So really since week 2, Logan, the top 2 teams in the media and coaches polls have been Homedale 1, Weiser 2. It's just been kind of lockstep really since week 2, and now we're entering week 5 now. Weiser had no problems. They played an Oregon school. They played Baker High School in Baker City, 48-12. I think Homedale and Weiser could play like a best of 7 series, and it would go all 7
and it would
games.
go 7 games, and it would end in triple overtime, probably.
Right.
It would. I think that game is going to be phenomenal to watch when those 2 teams duke it out. It'll be good, and it's probably a preview of a semifinal or maybe even a state championship game, to be honest. Like, even whoever beats the other, I don't see the other falling that far in the rankings or the seedings where they won't be maybe a 2 or a 3 where they will meet in the semifinals for the state championship game. I think it's a very real possibility that you see those 2 play in late November.
Oh, that would be epic. That would be so cool if Weiser and Homedale met up. So Fruitland had the week off. They didn't have an opponent. And then otherwise, you had Parma and Payette playing non-conference games in the SRV. Payette went and played Wendell, which is a 2A program that's still trying to find its footing a little bit. Came away with a 21-7 win. Good victory for Payette, and not a bad loss for Wendell. And then really, I thought Parma had this is probably one of their best opportunities to get a win here, as they went to American Falls to play a Beavers team that is young. They got a lot of freshmen and sophomores, have really green, inexperienced offensive linemen, and it was close, but Parma ultimately fell just short in that loss to American Falls, 23-18. So tough luck for the Parma Panthers. They're now 0-4.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a long road for Parma. They got a ways to go, and it doesn't. It's just, unfortunately for them, there's just no light at the end of the tunnel as conference play starts. Unfortunately for them.
Yeah,
but
I thought that American Falls game would have been their last chance to get some momentum and get things going as they get into league play. So yeah, you mentioned it. League play finally starting up now. I said Parma's best chance was probably going to be at American Falls. Their next best chance probably comes this Friday night when they host Payette, right? Those are the 2 teams that were picked to finish 5th and 6th in the preseason coaches poll. So I don't know. I don't have a good feel for how that game might go, Payette at Parma.
Yeah, and when you get into conference play, just anything can happen. You're still familiar with each other. A lot of these kids know each other. They know maybe what so-and-so likes to do, what so-and-so what side of the field they favor, just those little nuances that in a non-conference game halfway across the state you don't pick up on. But playing summer ball with people or going to camps and stuff like that, and just being familiar with each other, you kind of start to learn tendencies, and so that gives you an advantage out there. I mean, for both teams. So I do kind of like Payette in that game, but Parma, you can't count them out of that one. Just from the familiarity aspect of it.
For sure. And then you have the top 4 teams all duking it out. I mean, this is going to be cool. It's almost like a series of elimination matches that we're going to see over the next couple of weeks, right? You've got the first matchup is I'll save the Fruitland game for last, because I think that's going to be the most intriguing one. But you've got You have Homedale traveling to McCall to play McCall Donnelly. And so we're going to find out, what this Vandals team is all about right off the bat, taking on the 4-0 Homedale Trojans.
Yeah, it'll be a good gauge. We'll see. Do you get run out of the building at home, or do you keep it close? I think even staying, it's almost like we talked about this with Carey. It's like when Carey only wins by 20, people are like, what went wrong there? Why'd they only win by 20? I think if you see McCall keep it to a score or two, that even in a loss, people say, oh, they look pretty good. They were able to keep it close against them. And people forget McCall was a 2A team 2 years ago. That they're newly here in the 3A. They're not used to competing against teams like Homedale on a regular basis. So I think if they can keep it close, maybe keep it to a score or two, that's got to go a long way for McCall Donnelly's, for their confidence as the season goes along.
And we talk about running backs in the conference, and it's always Kinchelo. Well, DJ Green plays for McCall Donnelly, and I know he would love to prove that he is the best all-around, most versatile back, because he brings not only the rushing skill set, but the receiving skill set. And so this could be a big opportunity for DJ Green to we already know what he can do on the basketball court. He kind of had his coronation at state last year as McCall Donnelly got all the way to the championship, but this could be his big coming out party for football.
Yeah, he's just all over the place, and he'd love to do nothing more than make a run. And when you have a player like DJ Green, if you make a run and you can just sneak your way in, you never know what can happen when you have a playmaker like that. You see it like on the basketball court. You just get one good player that gets hot, and you can make a run in a tournament. Same thing with its conference play comes around. If DJ Green gets hot, that's what nobody wants that. Nobody wants him to be hot and on a roll and have to go face him. Be like you said, he can run it, he can catch it. He's Christian McCaffrey, right?
It's a good comparison. Yeah.
I mean, Panthers are 2-0, by the way, if anybody was curious. But anyways, yeah, like you said, it'll be interesting to see how that one shapes out and see how McCall hangs around with them. Just should be a good game. I think it'll be close early on, but I think probably that run game of Homedale will eventually wear down McCall Donnelly, and they'll not run away with it, but they'll put them away late. I think.
And Homedale has a little more depth too, which could prove to be key in that matchup. And then the final SRV matchup, I think this is going to be the best game. Fruitland at Weiser. I don't know where to go with this one. Where do you lean to on this?
I mean, I would take Weiser. I just think Brett Spencer back there, after what they did to Emmett, I think that just sticks out in my mind. That they beat Emmett, and Emmett might be one of the best 4A teams right now. They're the most consistent one you see across 4A. Besides that loss to Weiser, of course, but
4A's a hot mess right now. It's a hot mess.
4A.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one that's just like, okay, who's good? Nobody wants to be good. Nobody wants to claim it. That one is I know that's not our forte to say, right? But my goodness, that's going to be something. I don't think anybody knows who's going to win. There's going to be 16 teams in that tournament, and I think probably 12 of them could take it. It just doesn't look. It's wide open.
Yeah.
Well, there's your taste of 4A if you're into that. But yeah. So I think that I like Weiser in that game. I think Weiser's determined. I think Fruitland beat them in the regular season last year, and then Weiser took care of them in the playoffs when they met in the playoffs. But I like Weiser. I think Weiser's like I said. I think you're going to see Weiser and Homedale playing in the semifinals. That both of those two teams will be there in the semifinals.
Okay. All right. Well, when I'm filling out my gridiron game picks this week, Logan, and again, you can play for free on IdahoSports.com. Just pick the winner or who you think will win every single game across the state of Idaho in a given week. And if you get the most correct picks, you win a prize. You win some cold hard cash, which is pretty cool. I think on my Gridiron game picks, I think I'm going to go with Fruitland. I got a feeling.
All right. Hey,
I'm stepping out on the limb.
I mean, you've seen it in college football this year where just everybody's beating everybody there too. It's just, I mean, I guess it's just translating down. It's just a wide open free for all this season.
Yeah, for sure. So it'll be a lot of fun as the SRV finally gets underway. The WIC, the Western Idaho Conference in 2A, also begins conference play finally, really starting up this week. The big game last week, of course, was on IdahoSports.com. Coal Valley Christian traveled to Westside to play the Pirates, and Coal Valley Christian came into the matchup as the number 5 ranked team in the state of Idaho, and the poll just came out again tonight, the media poll, and they stayed at number 5, which I think is an indication of, okay, we respect that you went and played the best. Now they fell 47-14, but I think Coal Valley was a handful of plays away from making that game a lot closer. So,
yeah, and I just think that I don't think it says more about Coal Valley being bad as it does just Westside is that good. Back-to-back state championships, just they're good. They're good. It's hard to travel that far, and there's some Power 5 conferences that probably don't travel as far to play an away game. I mean, heck, you look at the ACC. You know, if you're Wake Forest traveling to NC State, you don't travel as far as Coal Valley Christian did to go play Westside. You know, that's a long way to go, and I respect them for doing that. And like you said, I think a loss to Westside probably actually does more for their rankings than if they were to go beat Valley or go play another 2-it, go beat Wendell. I think it'll do more for them in that regard that they played up and that they'll come out with a winning record, even though they played a tough team out of conference.
Yeah, I was very impressed watching Carter Fortin for the first time in person. You know, I've seen him on film, but until you actually see him in person, with the pocket collapsing around him pretty consistently, he was able to stand in, deliver the ball. He got smoked one time and still released the ball and completed it downfield. He's got very good pocket awareness. He moves really well. And so you look at Carter Fortin, this big 6'4" gunslinger, and you think, oh yeah, Coal Valley, they're going to spread the ball around. Well, I was talking to their head coach, Mark Moreno, quite a bit before the game, and he said, really, you know, our 3-0 start has been really keyed on our run game. And you saw it with Lincoln G, who is a great tailback, and he'll kind of be spelled by Ryan Galiner at times. And then those two, along with Fortin, they actually run a little option play out of the shotgun that's pretty effective. The problem with Coal Valley was they had a couple of snaps that were errant that led to some long yardage type situations. The other big key was Westside got the ball first, marched the ball down the field and scored, which immediately put the pressure on Coal Valley offensive. They're already down 7-0, and Coal Valley went 3 and out. Westside got the ball again, marched down the field again and scored, and it was 14-0 just like that. So if I was going to play Westside, I would want them to actually be on defense first. I want my team to set the tempo of the game, not Westside dictate how the game's going to go. And so that was the biggest thing. Coal Valley kind of got behind early, tried to rally back late, and then the big backbreaker came when Carter Fortin was trying to throw a middle screen, kind of backed up inside their own 30, tried to throw a middle screen, and it was picked off by one of the defensive linemen for Westside, and from there it was pretty much over. But I came away really impressed with Coal Valley. It doesn't get any easier this week, Logan, as they travel to Melba. Melba, holy smoke, shut out Valley 74-0. Now I know Valley's not a very good team, but still, when you put up 74 points, everybody notices.
Yeah, I think they only threw like 11 passes or something in that game total, and they still did that. It's crazy. Because you got to think it at some point you start, like for instance, when I was at Wilder last week and they played Cary, Cary got up 46-0 at halftime, only scored a touchdown in the second half because they kind of just slowed it up. And you got to think that Melba did the same thing, but they still kept scoring. That's impressive when you can put in the backups and they just keep hammering it down. And like you said, big matchup. this might be a de facto conference championship game. From what we've seen so far, I know I took Nampa Christian, and I still think they can. They still have something to say about that conference championship, but it's looking really like it's going to be those two Melba and Coal Valley, and this could decide it. They could play each other and then run the table the rest of the way, and you give it to Melba. So this should be another one of those top games in 2A this week. I don't know what else is going on around the state, but definitely here in the Treasure Valley, that's got to be the top game of the week. I mean, you look around and Nampa Christian has Valley, so they should win that game. Nampa Christian doing pretty good, only 3-1 on the season, and then Marsing plays Orofino, so we'll see what happens there. Those two teams both kind of struggling on the year. Marsing does have a win, but and then New Plymouth plays Vale. I don't know much about Vale and how they are, but
yeah.
So looks like the game of the week right now is probably that Melba Nampa Christian game.
So Melba hosting Coal Valley Christian. And I guess I should note that because there's only 5 teams in the league, they do have to kind of stagger the conference schedule. So I mean, truly right now, Nampa Christian is technically in first place, right? They're 1-0. They shut out Marsing last week.
Right.
I think it was 43-0. Let me double check that. Yeah, 43-0. So yeah, Nampa Christian, they're fine. They're fine. They're right where we thought they would be. And so,
go
ahead.
I was just saying, like, I know we've been talking about the other two, and I did pick Nampa Christian, so
yeah.
I still think they've got it there, and I still think that offensive line that returned everybody is going to be a factor, and if they can hold on and just beat one of them, if it turns it could be a possible 3-way tie at the top, and that's not out of the realm of possibilities either. I think that you might see, kind of like last year we saw in 3-0 over in East Idaho, where Teton, South Fremont, and Sugar had all beat each other.
Right.
Of course, there's 2 extra teams here, but those top 3, very real possibility that maybe they all beat each other and have a 3-way tie there at the top.
And
we'll see what happens.
I'll say this: I think all 3 get into the playoffs this year.
Yes,
because of the way they've scheduled, right? Melba played North Fremont, Coal Valley went and played Westside, Nampa Christian has played Fruitland. So I think they realized and said we got to schedule better. And so no matter how it shakes out, I think all 3 teams get to the playoffs. It's just a matter of who finishes where. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I agree.
Okay, 1A level. Let's quickly go through the 1A stuff from last week. Is there anything that jumped out to you? I mean, I'm trying to find a story to hang our hat on. I guess Rimrock started off conference play with a nice 62-6 win over Greenleaf Friends. Rimrock's got a new coach this year, Sam Ward. He comes from Montana, and he wasn't hired until like the middle of July. He came very, very late in the process, and so Rimrock kind of had to throw things together on the fly, and for them to be 1-1 and win 62-6, they had a game canceled because their opponent had some COVID problems, so they haven't been able to play as many games as everybody else. But a good start for Rimrock. Yeah,
I mean, anytime I know it was as Greenleaf, but to put up that many points for a team that's kind of just putting themselves together, they got to be feeling good about going into the rest of the season. So we'll see how they shape up as they get deeper in that conference season. They got a couple big road trips. I think they come into notice in a couple weeks. So you'll see how they do. But yeah, I'm definitely impressed with that. And I was impressed with Wilder. They beat Garden Valley. Garden Valley had a big win 2 weeks ago against Idaho City. But then Wilder bouncing back. I think that's the big thing. They bounced back they took a beating from Cary. They did. And to bounce back and then to beat Garden Valley. I know Garden Valley's not the Garden Valley of the last 3 years, but they're still well coached and traditionally a great team. And to beat them 28-12, I think that was good for Wilder to get back on the horse. And I think it just shows that Wilder could be one of those teams that might give notice some problems more than we originally thought. And so we'll see how that one shapes up as the season goes along.
For sure. I think the other results from last week, Council defeated Timberline from Weipe 48-22. Timberline was a team that's just been ravaged with COVID problems. Like as a school, I think they've had a lot of problems. It was only their second game of the year, and it had been 2 weeks since they had played, so they were kind of walking into a trap with Council. But and then also, Tri-Valley defeats Idaho City 26-20. I think we kind of have to recalibrate, because coming into the season, we thought Idaho City might compete for that second spot in the conference. And we thought, well, Tri-Valley, they lost so much talent, they might be down. We might have to reassess. Tri-Valley's 2-2. Idaho City is 0-3.
I know. I think Idaho City might be that unfortunately just be that team at the bottom this year. I mean, they got beat really bad the week before by Garden Valley, and we've seen that. I don't know how many games Garden Valley is going to win this year. They're just trying to kind of figure out who they are after their graduating class, and Idaho City they're just struggling. Yeah, like you said, the 26-20 they fell to Tri-Valley, and Tri-Valley, I can't remember who they beat. They beat somebody else.
They defeated Greenleaf.
Greenleaf, yeah. So I think Idaho City might be down this season, unfortunately for them. But then, Lewis County also beat Salmon River 66-0. So that was a big win. I didn't expect to see that out of Lewis County to win that big. I thought it would have been closer with Lewis County. Lewis County only 2-2 on the season now. I thought it would have been closer from Salmon River.
Yeah, I think Lewis County is pretty clearly the second best team up there in District 2 in the White Pine League, only behind Kendrick. And I think they're clearly a step ahead of Deary. Deary's really struggled this year. So we're going to find out this week, Logan, kind of where everybody stands, because you've got Idaho City at Greenleaf Friends, right? Pair of 0-3 teams, the two teams that are kind of at the bottom. And then I think also in the 1A D2 ranks, you've got Tri-Valley at Council, and we'll find out which one of these teams might be the challenger to Horseshoe Bend potentially in the Long Pit Conference. That's going to be a fun matchup as well.
Yeah, and Garden Valley plays Salmon River, so we'll see. I probably will take Garden Valley in that one. I think the Wolverines do well there, and then the big road trip for Horseshoe Bend going over to play Water Springs. So kudos for them. We were kind of talking about that before. That believe it, Water Springs was supposed to play Showband, and Showband ended up not having a team, and Horseshoe Bend steps up and says, we'll play. And so that's a good pickup. I think that should be a good game between those two. And I think the other game that I would like to see is that Rimrock Wilder game. I think that'll show us maybe who's ready to take on notice.
Yeah.
Wilder held their own against Horseshoe Bend a couple weeks ago. But then, like we said, really struggled against Cary, but then bounced back to win against Garden Valley. So I think maybe whoever comes out of that game, we say that might be the team that's next in line against Notice, and maybe can compete with Notice and maybe possibly sneak into the playoffs.
Yeah, this will be the week where we find out maybe who the challengers are going to be. So it'll be a lot of fun for sure. So, okay, Logan, every week before we wrap up the show, you like to give out 3 stars, and it doesn't always necessarily have to be football, or it doesn't even necessarily have to be a player. Sometimes you give it out to an entire team. Where are we going with the 3 stars this week, Logan?
Yeah, so we're going to give one to Rimrock for the football team for coming away with a big win. Like we said, Greenleaf, not a super strong team, but good for them to come out with a win after kind of just a tumultuous offseason they've had and kind of just throwing everything together. And it's only their second game of the year. Like everybody else, some teams have played 4 or 5 games, and they've been sitting at home a lot. And so good to see them get that win and get into the books there. Also, another one, let's give it to Rimrock's volleyball team. So just Rimrock in general, they get 2 of them. Like we said, the volleyball team is looking pretty good over the last couple of weeks, and they have a big game against Greenleaf tonight. That game's probably done right now. But then the third one, let's go Hayden Kinchlow. I think he can pass up on 200 yards on the ground with 2 touchdowns, and he continues to do that week in and week out, and he's going to be a force to reckon with as the season goes along. And I don't know what his recruiting status is right now, but you got to think that he's getting on people's radar, that people are starting to recognize that name as the season goes along and they play teams like a Weezer that has a D1 prospect. Somebody's going to see him and like what they see. So Hayden Kinchlow, the third star. So we give it to Rimrock football, Rimrock volleyball, and Hayden Kinchlow.
Okay, that's going to be that's pretty good company to be in for sure. So we'll see how everything shakes out this upcoming week with another full slate of volleyball, football, soccer action as well. And it's going to be a lot of fun to break it all down as we're finally now into conference play, Logan. By this time next week, we're going to be able to have much more informed opinions, and we'll probably sound a lot smarter, right?
Yeah. I think this week we're gonna get some gravy on top of the potatoes finally.
I like it. Gravy on top of the potatoes. Oh, all right. That reminds me, I got to go get dinner. So that will do it for this edition of the Treasure Valley Prepcast presented by D.L. Evans Bank. That's right. They're on board as the sponsor, not just for the Treasure Valley Prepcast, but the SIC Prepcast, as well as all of our Treasure Valley game night broadcasts as well. So big thanks to D.L. Evans Bank for stepping up. You can get the audio of this podcast at IdahoSports.com or wherever you download your podcasts. You can also catch the video on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, as well as our Facebook page. All right, Logan, we'll see you back here next week. Stay safe and have fun at whatever game you're going to be at this week.
Yeah, Middleton Ridgeview. That's where I'll be.
Okay, that's going to be a good one too. So that'll be a lot of fun for sure. I got to go to Burley. I'm going to be in Burley for Minico and Burley, little Magic Valley.
That should be a good game. That should be a fun one.
Yeah, I'm excited. So we'll see how it goes. But all right, for Logan Green, I'm Brandon Baney. Thanks for tuning into the Treasure Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.